Okay, today we're going to be showing the installation of the counter mount for the Dell Venue 11 tablet. Now, the first step that you're going to do is you need to decide where you're going to mount this on your counter. This is the pole itself, and you have a couple of different options. You can mount it along the edge of a counter if you're just going to be using it from one location, but you could also mount it on the corner of a counter because the counter mount does allow the tablet to be rotated. So if you put it on a corner, you can have the tablet be able to rotate to face this part of the counter or rotate it the other way to face the other part of the counter. So that is the decision that you'll have to make. Now once you've decided where to mount it, you want to pay attention to this slot in the back of the pole. Now the slot here is the rotation slot, so it's very important that the slot face away from you. So if you're mounting it at the edge of the counter, you'll want the slot to face away from you. If you mount it in the corner, you'll want the slot facing away from the corner. Now the next thing is to decide whether or not you want to route your cables down through the counter. Now the great thing about this solution is that this pole is hollow in the middle, so you can actually route your cables down through it, all the way down and through your counter. So if you are going to route your cables through your counter, then you will want to use a hole saw. The hole saw is not included with the solution, but you can buy it at any hardware store, and drill a hole roughly the same size as the hole in the bottom of the counter mount. So once you have drilled your hole, if you're going to do that, then you will place the pole mount on top of the hole, and then you'll mount it to the counter. Now you have a couple of different options. If you're able to access the underside of your counter, like I could with this table, you can use these long screws along with the washers and the nuts to drill into the counter and mount it that way. If you're unable to access the underside of your counter, it also includes some self-tapping wood screws that you can use to drill or to screw directly into the counter. And that should be pretty self-explanatory. All the parts that you need are in this bag. Now the other option, if you're not going to be mounting it directly to the counter, is to use the weighted base. Now the weighted base is sold separately, but if you have purchased the weighted base, this would allow you to set the pole mount up without actually drilling into your counter. So in that case, you would align the holes in the pole base up with the mounting holes in the weighted base, and then you would use these 4 short wide black screws, and then you would just screw these. I'm just going to put these in by hand. Normally you would use an Allen wrench. And then at that point you could still route your cables down through the pole, and they would come out the bottom, and then you could just run them out the back of the weighted base. I'll go ahead and leave the weighted base on for now. Now the next thing that you want to do at that point is put the flange cover over the pole and down to cover up the screws. Now it's important that you do this at this point because if you wait until after the next step, you won't be able to get it on. So put that on at this point in time. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take the tilt and swivel assembly. And this is the back of this assembly, and it has a screw here. The other side is the front, so this is the part that's going to face you. But you're going to put this down over the top of the pole, and as you can see, this screw is going to screw into where that slot is. And you can then tighten that down with Allen wrench. Okay, now the other thing you want to be sure of, now since this is the front, this little mechanism here is the tilt mechanism. So it can tilt back and forth, but you want it tilted in such a way that it is toward the front of the pole assembly. If it's not that way when you receive it, make sure that you tilt it in that direction, because that's the direction that your tablet is going to be facing. Okay. Now the next step will depend on whether or not you purchased the rotation option. if you have the rotation option, you'll receive this rotation adapter. And this is what allows the tablet to rotate between portrait and landscape mode. Now, if you're not using the rotation adapter and you did not purchase that solution, then for the non-rotatable option, you will mount the lower half of the tablet frame directly to the tilt and swivel mechanism like that. If you're using the rotation adapter, then you will put the rotation adapter and mount that to the tilt and swivel assembly, and then the lower part of the frame will attach to the adapter. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. At this point, we are going to mount the rotation adapter to the tilt and swivel mechanism. Now, when you mount this, you're going to need to rotate this oval part to expose the mounting holes. And so this is going to mount directly to the tilt and swivel mechanism like that. And then you're going to install it with 2 screws. Now let me take a moment to show you the different screws that you're going to need for the rest of the assembly. We have 3 different types of screws here. This is a flathead Allen wrench screw that has sort of some medium length threads on it. The next one is going to be the same type of screw, except that it has much shorter threads. And if you'll only have these shorter ones if you have the rotation adapter, because they come with the rotation adapter. So if you're using the fixed mount assembly that does not rotate, then you will not have these shorter screws. Now the last one is this round-headed Allen wrench screw, but this is a special type that has this little post in the center. Can you get focused in on the little post so you can see that? Okay, that little post is an extra security device, and it needs a special Allen wrench to put it on and remove it, but we'll get back to that in a moment. Now, whether you're attaching the lower half of the frame assembly directly to the tilt and swivel mechanism, or if you're using the rotation adapter, you're going to be using the flathead screw with the longer threads. Even though the shorter threads will work in those holes, you'll need those for a later step, so don't use them now. So now we'll take these screws and screw them directly into these 2 holes. Okay, now that that is screwed on, we're going to rotate the oval part of it back upright, and then we're going to mount the lower half of the tablet frame to the tilt and swivel mechanism. Now you'll notice that the lower half of the frame has 2 slots and 3 screw holes, and you can mount that onto either one of the slots in either one of the sets of holes, depending on your preference. So you could mount it like this, or move it down 1 level to this. And it doesn't matter which one you use, it's your own preference. So I'll use the lower slot. Now this is where you're going to use the short screw, the one with the very short threads. It's very important that you use the short screws in this hole, because if you use the longer ones, it will interfere with the rotation mechanism, and you will not be able to rotate the tablet if you use the longer screws. So once we get both of these shorter screws screwed in, now we're ready to go on to the next step. Now we're going to take the tablet itself, and of course you would remove the plastic from the tablet before putting it in the mount, and also make sure that the power button is on the top so that you know that the tablet is right side up. So we're going to take the upper part of the frame and we're going to slide that onto the top of the tablet, and then we'll slide the lower half of the tablet into the lower half of the frame. Now I'm going to flip this whole thing around so that you can see the back. Now the upper part of the frame must go over the lower part of the frame, because there's this little knob here that needs to go through this larger hole. Okay. Now once you have that in here, now we're going to use the last 2 screws. Now remember, these are the ones with the little post in the center of the hole. And for that, you will need this special Allen wrench that is hollow in the center so that it can go over this post. All these Allen wrenches do come with the whole solution, so you will not need any additional tools. So now we're going to use the special Allen wrench to put these special screws in. And the other one. Get that nice and tight. Okay. Now, the tablet is securely mounted in the frame, and because, as I mentioned, you can rotate this, up to about 180 degrees to either direction. It will also tilt forward and backwards. And if you did purchase the rotation option, then you can rotate the tablet between portrait and landscape mode. The third option that we have available is the quick release, which allows you to actually remove the tablet from the counter mount. We will be showing how to install the quick release in a future video. All right, thank you.